Rostermania. It was sort of a weird one because we had a Rostermania just before Blast because of registration dates, and then we're coming to the end of the year when you get a break anyway, and we know the major's in March. I said March this time and not May like I've done on every other video because I've obviously got brain damage. But let's instead focus now on the transfers that have occurred, you would think, to bring these teams to the finished rosters they want ahead of March. I think we're pretty much there now. I'm not expecting a lot more activity, which means if you are one of these players, like players we've talked about on tonight's stream, like JKS, you might very well be left in the cold for a while, actually. I don't know, but we'll get into it. One thing I didn't really talk a lot about is FaZe have given a full-time contract to Neo as a coach. Obviously, it's one of those things where we haven't really talked a lot about Neo's transition into coaching. It's one of those things that's kind of just almost like just happened. And I guess because of the ongoing problems that we have with just retaining a fan base that sort of has like any knowledge and any conceptualization of history, there's probably a lot of people who don't even remember Neo as a player at any stage in his career in the space right now, pretending to be fans of these teams and everything else. What I will say is, I always felt that, the Roband situation, he was certainly harshly done by, because obviously he should have been on stage, should have had a major in his tenure as coach. He's super well regarded by all the players, and I think he was even there at their most recent event, where, they just had Roband come in and hang out. So clearly, even as he left, it wasn't really about anything to do with him. It was obviously they just needed a change of ideas. Now, it's very hard to gauge how successful Neo has been as a coach because his appointment has coincided with FaZe being the number one team in the world, winning a ton of trophies until their recent stumble against Vitality, going on what might be the fourth or third longest winning streak in counterstrike history. But of course, it's also coincided with the release of CS2, where the whole scene's had a bit of a hard reset, and no one is playing particularly high-level CS outside of FaZe, maybe Vitality. It's not great, is what I'm saying. So what I will say is, though, if you judge coaches on their results, then ultimately you've got to give a lot of credit to Neo, and I totally understand why they would keep him on. I think it's kind of interesting. There's some coaches in the space that get loads of credit, and there are some coaches in the space that don't get enough, and there are some coaches that are just outright ignored. I know Heroic's a fucking disaster now with the Stown and Yabby thing and Katie and out and all of that, but Exist has been a really good coach in my opinion. I think Exist deserves a lot of respect because it's no coincidence that when he got there, that was when they started finding some stability. They sort of did become a little bit more consistent. Yeah, they still were prone to underperformance in big games, but they had a pretty really good run of being the number one team in the world at the time, but they were always getting these deep runs into tournaments and losing semis and everything else. Saw is another good example over at Ents. Ents were punching well above their weight and everybody was raving about Snappy. No one was really giving any credit to Saw except Snappy, who was giving loads of credit to Saw. And obviously they're not going to work together anymore. Meanwhile, a coach like Kassad, who in the past has took Australian lineups to semi-finals of majors, people think Kassad doesn't understand the game on any level. And now he's back. Obviously, we'll probably talk about that in this bit, but he's going to be a coach at Bleed. So it's interesting. Some coaches just go in the background and don't get any credit. And I wonder if Neo is one of those, because he's got the temperament to be a fantastic coach. Obviously been in IGL at various points in his career as well, but he's just a very humble and down-to-earth dude. He never bought his own hype. When people were saying he was the GOAT of 1.6, he would never have it. He never accepted that mantle unto himself. He obviously worked with the exact sort of polar opposite of his personality for a long time in the form of Taz. They had a very fractious relationship, but one that within that energy, they were able to generate a lot of success. So he also understands about working with more eccentric, let's say, personality types. I think long term, it'll be a really good move for FaZe. If they do overcome the sort of loss of Twists, it looks like Frozen is going to be the replacement. We'll probably talk about that as well. But yeah, I just think this is worth mentioning that, you know, Neo is going to stay on as a coach, and I will assume he's been a part of that success that they've experienced so far. We also had the news that Elian would be leaving Forza. This has kind of weirded me out a little bit. It's sort of surreal, I guess, because right now, like, with Russia, we all know because of the situation, all the Russian orgs are in a weird spot right now in terms of travel, in terms of competition, in terms of cooperation from other teams. But obviously, in the sort of post-Jerry world, Forza have been struggling a little bit. And I thought when Elian went there, I was like, I always thought he was like one of the next players to like sort of really break out and be good. I always rated him very highly when he was part of that Entropic roster, and he had like some really, really good performances. Obviously, a lot of that was in the online era, and it never really seemed to translate too well to LAN. He did have some disappointments, particularly when he went out at majors and stuff. But I still think he's good enough to be in certainly this level of team. So I was surprised to see him be the make weight. He's been replaced by a player called Goku Shima, who I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about. He's someone who is 23, so already had like a decent kind of spell in his career. But kind of weird. I don't know if Elian gets a team after this. Like a lot of Russians, they don't have somewhere to go when they leave. They're going to be kind of benched and just out there for a long period of time before they like turn up on Aurora or, whatever it might be. And Elian's a talent who, at 24, it's kind of slipping away from him. All the mitigating circumstances won't change that fact. I don't know if it's going to be... It's just a shaky hand. Kind of a shame because he was always a player I really wanted to see blossom. Next, we had confirmation that Yabi and Stown would indeed be joining Astralis. There was a lot of conjecture about who was going to be the players to make way, because, obviously there wasn't enough room at the inn. So we'll talk a little bit about that. First thing I want to say is I haven't had time to get it finished with everything that's going on in my life, but I am going to get it out soon. I just thought it would be a bit of fun, but because Stowns did that tweet about the truth will out, the truth will always out, I decided I would randomly interview loads of my Danish sources just to see what the truth was. And I now know what the truth is, and it's worse than you might even think. So I'm going to write an article about it. The problem I've got is I just don't know how to present it. I might just write it as a story, like this is what happened. And just be like, if you don't believe it, whatever. I might just do it like that. But anyway, it's a typical crazy Astralis heroic rivalry roller coaster. And ultimately, if you can wrap your head around this, the word on the street is these two players went for a combined almost 2 million. I think they were saying that on HLTV confirmed as well. They said it was between 1.5 and 2 million. And so what I've been told is that was why Heroic caved. That was the asshole tax, essentially. That they were no other team would have had to have paid that money, but Astralis really wanted them. And listen, if HLTV confirmed hadn't said it as well, they said between 1.5 and 2 mil, I'd have been like, but they must have different sources to me. So, and yeah, Astralis not as broke as they were. Because remember, they did that big deal with Carmine Corp recently as well. But anyway, so that's the word on the street. By the time the finished article comes out, I'll double and triple check everything, and we'll get to it. But anyway, so Yabby and Stown have officially joined, and Buzz and Borup were the players that were going to be benched. A lot of people thought Stair might not make it as the fifth, and Buzz might be the one to stay because Stair's performance since joining Astralis hasn't been particularly great. Buzz's hasn't either, but obviously he takes a bit less room in the team. But in the end, I mean, I was always confident Stair would be the one to stay. He's the one who's got the relationship with Device. Device really likes Stair, really rates him. He was pushing for him to be in the team when Device came back. It was always kind of going to be this lineup. Talking about Yabby and Stown, just as players, I think Stown is, fantastic. I know they've accused him of going missing in big games, but as a kid, he's come through a lot in his personal life, losing a family member. He obviously is a star player. He's under tremendous pressure. I think he's like a really, really good player, and it's going to be a huge pickup for Astralis to have somebody else that can sort of like take some of the weight off the collective shoulders. But also as well, Jabby was the real surprise for me when he joined Heroic. I honestly thought when Heroic picked up Jabby, they were getting a cast-off player, just somebody that was never going to live up to anything he did at Tier 2 or any of that stuff. And ultimately, he looked much improved when he joined Heroic. He suddenly was a really solid aimer, aggressive player, could like frag out and do things that I didn't really think he was capable of. And so Heroics, the end of their successful run before sort of pancaking in themselves due to internal problems was, Yabby and Stown were very, very good. And so are Astralis getting upgrades? I mean, I've got to say it. Yeah, absolutely. Borup, there was no question of Borup staying. Borup, I think, has been, he does a lot of thankless work, but you can do thankless work and still stand out. So he was always going to go, and obviously he's a much weaker player than either of these guys. And Buzz, I understand it. Astralis have at least consistently tried to bring talent through. They've actually used their academy team for what it's there for. I mean, a lot of that is because they had Casper shit publicly telling everyone, we're really a 10-man roster, guys, totally, honestly. That's how it works in handball. Do you remember that I played handball? So I get it. But, ultimately, these are two massive upgrades compared to the players that they've got. Upgrades while simultaneously destroying your hated local rivals. It's the perfect move for Astralis. So this will leave their roster now, and this is probably, this is the best Danish roster that's been assembled probably since the old Astralis core was dismantled. You've got Device, Blame F, Stown, Yabby, Stair. They're all really good players individually. I know people love to meme on Blame F and say fucking Bait F and say he's a dog shit IGL and all of this stuff. He may not be like a fantastic tactical guy, but he's a very good leader. He makes clear, concise calls if you listen to him. He always gets his numbers. Maybe you can make an argument his kills are low impact, but, the people who say he only gets bait kills or eco frags or, save kills and shit like this, they obviously don't look at the numbers coming out of a tournament, because very often Blame F will be the guy he's always in the top 5 entries when you look at tournaments. And that's been an historical component of his game. He gets a lot of first engagement kills. And so you don't do that if you're just being a baiter all the time. I think his extreme lurk style can look bad on the eye when he's the last alive. But as I've always said, the problem with being a lurker is that if your other teammates die and they don't do their job, you're left looking like a cunt on the other side of the map. That's the problem with it. So I think Blame F has a lot of good points that people don't talk about. But Yabby Stown coming in is going to give these guys a really extra dimension. And Astralis have needed it because they have been well below par for a long period of time. And I think this team, there's no excuses anymore. Like, if you don't succeed with that lineup, it is blame F's in-game leadership. It is the support staff. It is the environment. There's no reason those 5 players at the start of a new game can't even be potentially one of the best teams in the world. Why not? Why is that beyond the realms of possibility? So, I mean, for me, it's Astralis. You know how I feel, but we're objective here. It's a 2 thumbs up move, even though I very much doubt anyone is going to wish the team well or support them. Then we had this. Fnatic confirm they were benching Dexter. Now, as somebody who, I don't know, look, it's hard because I don't think Dexter should have got the Fnatic gig in the first place. But I also wasn't, like, blown away when he got the Mouse Sports gig, got the Mouse gig. He was allowed to kind of, like, limp through his time in Mouse without any fucking critical, like, people just were like, oh, but they did well at that one major, when everyone else did dog shit because no one was playing good CS and it was the beginning of the end of CSGO. You're the one that outsiders won. And it was just like, I don't know, I never really saw the attraction. And when they brought him in, I mean, this Fnatic team has been pretty much like, been a bit of a joke, really. You can see as well what it says here in the write-up. You know, through the 4 months he spent, Dexter averaged a 0.88 rating with 0.80 impact. A sign of individual struggles. A top 12 finish at IEM Cologne was one of the few bright spots in his time in charge. And look, Fnatic didn't have a good cohesive squad. Fnatic are just so washed in general. I mean, we're going to... They pick up a team after this. So I'll save the Fnatic being dog shit talk. But I thought, this is what I mean about, like, that Reddit thread. I feel sorry for Dexter. You know, I feel sorry for JKS. These guys have got opportunities, like, and they just haven't taken them. That's just the nature of the business. They get their opportunities. They've been allowed to play in 2, like, decent European teams. They've been allowed to play with some unbelievably talented players. They've had players picked up for them in that time, been part of rosters. Like, at the end of the day, if you can't work with that, if you can't get your own personal level up and make a team work, as an IGL especially, you don't deserve the gig. And so, you know, he got 4 extra months in Europe, but he'll be back to playing in Aussie teams now. And that, I kind of felt that's where he should always have stayed. I never really understood it. He seems, by the way, a super nice guy. So always understand, Richard knows who the nice guys are, but I don't give a fuck about that when I'm talking about what you actually achieved. There's just no room for it. So Fnatic cutting him, that's a thumbs up. You know, I know it was only 4 months, but let's be real. Him and that lineup were going absolutely fucking nowhere. So what are you going to do? Then one of the other weird parts of the whole Falcons thing being out there sort of also fell into place. And we had Ents lose Snappy. But also, surprisingly, Saw left as well, which I was very surprised to see Saw go. Obviously, as we said earlier, one of the very well-regarded coaches, and everybody in the scene, you know, has behind-the-scene knowledge, knows how well-regarded he is, knows how successful he's been, knows how highly Snappy rates him, attributes a lot of the success they had at Ents to him, Natu, my good friend as well, the same. But yeah, Snappy leaving, and so a lot of people speculated, oh, well, Saw must be going to assist Zonic, and I'm going, there was no way that was ever happening, guys. Like, if you think, this is how little people think of Saw, actually. There were people credibly saying, like, not credibly, but like, they were sort of genuinely believing that Saw would go to Falcons and be Zonic's assistant coach after having had all this, like, incredible autonomy and success at Ents. There's no fucking way you would ever do that. You wouldn't agree to that at all. That would be completely absurd. It would be such a huge step backwards for your career to do that. So, no, but we'll get to that in a second. And obviously, Snappy leaving Ents, well, it's a big loss. Snappy has been one of the best IGLs of the last 2 years. He has had not a lot of resources to work with. He's had to deal with an international lineup. And again, if I show you that lineup for Ents and you go, Richard, that's a good team, you have to understand nobody thought that when these players were coming in. All of it was a gamble at the time. I remember, dude, when Madden came into that team, He was like the last piece of a jigsaw that they were working on back then. We were still doing by the numbers, guys. I remember being on by the numbers and saying, Madden just doesn't excite me at all. He's a bit of a nothing player. I don't see what Ents are getting out of him other than him, filling the 5th position on the server. And obviously, turns out, boom, he's been a really good player. And at this most recent tournament, he's been their best player. He's playing like a star player with rumours about him potentially joining G2. So maybe he's going to get the CS2 bump as well. Obviously, Nert's coming into the team. Everybody knew Nert's was talented, but to take, as an IGL, to take a raw pug star, a face it star, bet him into a team, make him really good, that takes a lot of doing. Snappy's done that with, other players. Obviously, remember, it was Ents that elevated Spinks before he went to Vitality, and it took Spinks a long time to get going over at Vitality. Remember, the joke was, there was Spinks and then there was Stinks. That's what people used to say. He had a real rough time when he went there. So Snappy's got to take a lot of credit for everything he did as part of that Ents roster. And it's a huge, huge loss. Him going to Falcons is very interesting to me because the type of IGL he is, I don't know if they would even need him to be that had they got the team they wanted, because it would have been a team of all-stars. So all he would have done is just been another playbook IGL, which... okay. But ultimately, him going there now, and they're going to have to build a patchwork team because all of their, tier 1 targets have blown them out, apart from Magisk, gets very interesting, actually, because they might have to settle on a couple of players that they didn't ordinarily target or didn't ordinarily want. And Snappy might get some input in that now after, Twists has turned them down, as we've talked about last time on stream, and Nico turned them down. No Nico, no Munacy. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good move for him. Falcon's getting a very good IGL. I think he's, irreplaceable for Ents, but as we'll get to, they certainly did replace him. And they replaced him with the IGL many people feel is the greatest of all time. I think that's totally reasonable. I think that his record speaks for itself. He's got a really cool origin story. Obviously, Lucas was somebody that was, slipping through the cracks and pissing his career away. We all remember the Copenhagen Wolves story, where he was demanding his girlfriend came on stage to sit behind him in the coach's seat, and it delayed a final for 1 hour. And he got really sick after that. He had a collapsed lung, and then his other lung collapsed. He had loads of breathing problems, and he just thought, fuck it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be an arsehole anymore. I'm going to dedicate myself to the craft, going to dedicate myself to the sport. And he did. And he replaced Carrigan in what was TSM. And he turned that Danish lineup into the greatest team we've ever seen in CSGO history. Now, he could have rode off into the sunset. Remember, Lucas is children now. And so he could just take the money. He could take a job that's not as demanding as playing, coaching. He could go into punditry. Lucas has a wicked sense of humor. I've known him many years. He could easily be on a desk, could do desk work, be less time away from the family. Could do whatever he wants if he needs to do anything at all, because I'm sure he's been sensible with his money. But he wants to prove he can do it. He wants to prove he can do it again. And I like this because I don't think he's washed yet. Yeah, his individual skill had gone down. Yeah, Astralis, when he was there, they weren't functioning very well. They even got a little bit of a bump, if memory serves me correct, when Magis stood in for him for that one tournament, which might have been Cologne. Can't remember. But anyway, the bottom line is, Glaive is rolling the dice on his legacy. He certainly is. And I'll tell you, if he cannot fill, as unfair as this is, if he cannot fill the sizable shoes Snappy is leaving under the table for him, those giant fucking size 18 hobnail boots that Glaive is going to have to get his feet into. Yeah, his legacy is going to be a little bit tarnished by this, especially as we know, Carrigan keeps going from strength to strength. Carrigan is on the number 1 team in the world right now. They've just won a flurry of tournaments in CS2. All the while Carrigan wins, he chips away at Glaive's legacy. He's the other name you would talk about. He's the one that increasingly, with each passing year, Carrigan is the name that you get to hold up to Glaive fans, and they go, no, like vampires with a cross or whatever. So, and he keeps winning. And if Glaive's been in this pseudo-retirement for a bit, I know he wanted to get onto other teams. I said G2 should have called him up and just dropped Hooksy immediately. I stand by that. I don't know why they wouldn't, but whatever. It took Snappy going to Falcons to get Glaive back in the game. And Glaive is inheriting a team that just, I don't know, it's like nothing he's ever worked with before. It's an international lineup where everyone's speaking English. You know, these are not the best players in their positions. These are all very highly specified role players that Snappy knew how to use. So Glaive is going to have to pick it up. And as we'll get to, man, he's already been off to a start where the Redditors and HLTV have been all over his shit. I'll get the second part out. Cuban joining. Now, again, Love him as a guy. I love Cuban. He's a really super cool, chill dude. Never got his props when he was playing with the Virtus Pro guys. I always felt he was kind of like the forgotten man of the Polish scene. And he's had a really good and interesting career. And so him coming to Ents, I'm glad he's getting an opportunity. But man, replacing Saw, I don't know if it was like some sort of Saw, Snappy, Simpatico, or like Glaive wanted a new coach, or Glaive said he couldn't work with Saw, whatever. But I would have liked to have seen Glaive and Saw give it a try. That would have been the natural order of things. But Cuban's coming in. It's a complete fresh start. And so, listen, I rate this move in terms of how difficult it was going to be to replace Saw and Snappy. I will actually give this one thumbs up. Now, what we'll get to next is they've already had some matches because the Eliza Masters Poo is on right now. And so everyone's been watching Poo. And Glaive was back in action after like 2 days of joining Ents. And so he's had his games. Let's check in. They had a best of one against Havu, local heroes, and they lost. But it's a best of one, and best of one shouldn't happen. And they lost. And Nertz only got 4 kills somehow on Nuke. So didn't get off to a great start, right? Not a great one. But I mean, there's no need, guys. It's MR12. You don't need to do best of ones anymore. Games are quick now. Games are normal now. We can do it. We can have a best of 3 in fucking under like 2 hours. It's great. Anyway. So they had the first game, they lost that, and then they had to take on the new Fnatic lineup, which will be the next thing I'll show you about, so you're getting some little spoilers here. There it was, you can see, they beat them 2-1. They beat the new Fnatic 2-1, and not only that, they battled back. But I do just want to point out, Glaive had a 1-15 on Anubis. So, guessing while he was spending all that time out, he wasn't practicing that dog shit map either. He was like, in the chat, he be hooksing. He was just like, look, this map is fucking dog shit. I'm not going to learn it. It won't even be in the map pool by the time I come back. So, anyway, he had a bit of a nightmare there. And everybody, again, HLTV, lol, Glaive washed. But then on Vertigo, he top fragged. And then on Overpass, he didn't do too bad. And obviously he called a great game on Overpass. So they won 2-1. So he's already got a series win under his belt as an IGL in Ents against a newly hired team at Fnatic. But you know what? Like, listen, give that time, monitor that situation. Because if Glaive is able to win trophies with Ents, as he said on HLTV he wanted to do, he did an interview and he said, I don't want to just be a top 5 team. I want to win trophies. If he's able to do that, then he gets back. He gets back to the top without, Carrigan suddenly, I was just catching you up, Glaive. So, he does need to win something, I think. And it's wide open. It's wide open at the moment, the whole scene. So, Fnatic did pick up a team, and I'm going to say some very unkind things. Because I remember when playing for Fnatic meant something. I remember when playing for Fnatic meant you had made it as a player. Like, you were playing for an elite level organization with elite level management and support network around you, and with this huge legacy behind them. Remember, in 2015, they were the team that raised the bar. At the start of 2016, they were the team that started out strongest despite having made roster changes. It's not ancient history. Now, unfortunately, this Fnatic lineup looks absolutely fucking dog, because they've kept Crim. Crims is signed up again for another season in hell, another 4 months in hell. Like, just his legacy just getting pissed away by playing in all these mediocre teams. Afro obviously was already there. Like, he's been a decent pickup for Fnatic. That's fine. Body is coming, from the Falcons that we know. And we've got Matties and QB. And I just don't know what to say. The team just looks to be bereft of sort of any kind of star factor at all outside of Crims. And Crims isn't meant to be your fucking star player in 2023. Please, let Crims have a break. Let him have a rest. So this team for Fnatic, which again they've been putting out the kind of, we're coach and we're always looking for the best. And I'd rather Fnatic just went away for a little while if it's a money problem, but it's just so poor. So I'm not really vibing with it. I don't think taking Anubis offense is, doing well. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. I think Fnatic have sort of kind of given up on being an elite level team. And I'd be very surprised, even in CS2, if this team is able to achieve anything. As such, because of the underwhelming nature of the pickup, I'm going to give it 2 thumbs down. I'll give it an Overwatch fart noise. There you go. Fuck it. 2 thumbs down, Overwatch fart. We have to talk about NA. I don't know why. Why are we welcoming back all these fucking NA orgs that just pieced out and went to like Valorant or said, oh, CSGO, we can't do it. And now they're coming back and everyone's going, it's so good they're back. Oh my God. Listen, I'm going to say that nobody wants to hear this. And this is especially kind of important in line with the ESL Impact news. Why do we need NA to be part of Counter-Strike? Why? Why is this the one country that we have to have in? Because I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if I'm watching, like Korean players fill the gap, or Chinese players fill the gap, or Middle Eastern players fill. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what country it is. Are you good enough to play at an elite level? You are? Excellent. Come on in. Play some good Counter-Strike. Be part of the circuit. Are you a bunch of fucking greedy, overpaid, overprivileged, whining cunts that don't practice and then complain about how hard it is to fly to other countries to play the game despite everyone else doing the same thing? Oh, you are? Yeah, but I don't need you. Like, it would be better if NA was in it. Don't get me wrong. But I'm sick and tired of these orgs doing this thing where they flip-flop on it. Like, I'm sick and tired of, everyone, oh, wow, Cloud9's back. Hang on, yeah, that's Cloud9 that pulled the plug on a project in the middle of COVID before the team had even met each other, fired all of those players, by the way, fired Henry, fired everyone, let Henry publicly carry the can for it, and then said, we just can't afford it, sorry, guys. Then, as soon as the geopolitical situation presented an opportunity, they paid $3 million for the number 2 team in the world from Russia, and then underachieved and did fuck all with it. And everyone's like, yeah, we're Americans cheering for Russians all of a sudden. And this is fine. Boo! Virtus.pro must be called outsiders. Boo! Same Americans. So, I don't know. Why do we need Americans again? Why? Is there an answer? I know why the esports orgs want Americans in. And I know why ESL want Americans in, right? I get that because of the marketing budget. But why do we, the fans, non-American fans, why do we need American teams in? What do they make better? Nothing. There's not even that rivalry there anymore. Like, back when Americans had, when Europeans played Counter-Strike as the immovable object, and Americans played Counter-Strike like the irresistible force, and we'd only meet up at, a handful of events every year, that rivalry was actually worth something. When it's Europeans play competent Counter-Strike, Americans just play can't be arsed Evil Genius's Counter-Strike. Who even cares about the matchups? Who even cares about the rivalries? I don't. I couldn't give a shit. If I never heard a USA, if I never heard that chant ever again at an esports event, I wouldn't care. You have to want to be here. These orgs don't. These orgs don't even care. So they're back because they think CS2 is going to give everything such a bump they can make some money off it. They'll pull the plug on all these teams if that doesn't become true. Also, it's no coincidence as well. The Valorant project has kind of been stalling, and maybe there's not as much money as there is there, and there's this stupid long gap between the end of the seasons, and nobody likes it, and everyone's crying right now. And now they're like, we announce our triumphant return to Counter-Strike. Fuck your triumphant return. Triumphant for who? I don't give a fuck. Everyone's round of applause when TSM came back. TSM serially mismanaged what went on to become the greatest lineup of all time, and one of the nicest coaches in the form of Freddie Biscoff you'll ever meet. One of the nicest people. They completely fucked them over. Why would I ever want them back? Fucked over their own players in regards to, you will only play in the PEA. We will enforce exclusivity on you and ban you from ESL events. And what, like, Reginald being investigated for bullying, and your TSM's back. No, fine, stay gone, fuckers. I don't care. I don't want you here. So I don't know why, but I've noticed the Americans are all kind of slithering back in. And listen, the orgs that haven't had a chance, the Nouns, the M80s, I'm on board with y'all. I'll cheer you guys on. I hope you make it. I hope you treat this serious and you make it. But orgs like NRG coming back, nah, you cynical cunts. Nah, you're not getting a round of applause out of me for that. That rant, of course, brings me to NRG are going to come back. And they're going to target Daps, OC, and Breezy. These were the rumours that were doing the rounds. Everyone was kind of like scratching their head. Why would it be these guys in particular? And Daps is a coach, right? And everyone went, oh, well, Daps will be a really good coach, and OC's just come off Liquid, and Breezy, he did play in EG, so you can't really blame him being bad, right? And then, of course, no, Daps was not the coach, for I said GG, but it was really BG. It's going to be Daps playing as an IGL. Now, listen, I don't hate it. I don't hate that. Why don't I hate that? Because, as I said, JT in Complexity isn't even the same player he was in CSGO. Put it this way, either the game is radically different in a way I can't conceive of, like for certain types of player, or they just replaced him. Like the last few years, Complexity have just been making a body snatcher pod person version of him. And they just sat him in, and the original JT is just a withered husk somewhere, like Golden. But anyway, if JT can do it, Daps can do it. Right, that's my thought process. And so, while I think he's probably going to be washed and dog shit, 'cause he was a stand-in recently, and he was washed and dog shit, it might be different with his own set of players around, regular practice. I'm open to it. I've always respected Daps, right? Then OC coming in. OC sort of comes in, incredibly, as the star player of the lineup, which gives me pause for thought. Let's just say this. OC going to Liquid made sense. Back when he was in Extra Salt or whatever it was, he was definitely the next player that deserved a chance at Tier 1. But the other problem NA has always had, no other region in the world produces so consistently talent that is too good for Tier 2, but talent that never learns and never gets good enough for Tier 1. They have this 1.5 tier that no other country seems to have. Like, everybody, you either get your chance and you flop and everyone knows you're not good enough, and that's that, and you never come through again. But you then go to Tier 2 and you look like a normal player. NA send their players to Tier 2 and they end up smurfing. Like they say, like Junior looks amazing in Tier 2. You put him on Furia, you put him on Complexity, you can't do it. I don't understand it. OC might be one of those players in that proud tradition, but I always thought he looked so nervous and timid in Team Liquid. I almost feel like the badge was too big for him, and he never looked settled. And when he had good, relaxed games, he played well. And he would pop off, and he would have that pop-off game, and everyone would be like, oh my god, OC's back. But he just never did it consistently. And so him being the star player worries me. Breezy, as I said, put that fucker on the side of a milk carton because he's been missing for years. We'll wait and see. Hext obviously joined from EG, another person who's had the EG experience. Very suspect because on the way out, I think Hext said, that time at EG was great and I love this org. And Neelan did the same. Best year of my career. Like, I don't know, mate. Fang was another player that like I had really high hopes for. I remember watching him when he was coming through, when he first got his opportunities. And again, a player who his ceiling is really, really high, but he won't even maintain his ceiling between, rounds almost. He does really good things and really inexplicable things. All told, where do I think that team's going to be in CS2? I don't know. It's CS2, but I don't have high hopes. I think this is a very underwhelming return roster. It's clearly a roster assembled on a budget. I'm happy Orsi gets another chance to maybe show what he can do because Team Liquid has been a poison chalice appointment for a lot of fucking players. A lot of good players, not just him. A lot of coaches as well. It's like Team Liquid's a tough gig. Moses and Zeus and Stanislaw and you name it. So anyway, I have to give this a thumbs down on principle, but anything's possible in CS2. It's a brave new world. The last one is, it was said on Talking Counter, I believe, that FaZe are replacing Twists with Frozen, which I think is about as good as they could get. Frozen's in like an insane, I think he's been playing really well. Let me just bring up his stats just to confirm that. Because I've seen him have some monster games. Yeah, these are Frozen's last few games. And you can see, he's had like some fucking like this beast of a series there against Astralis and fucking, put up decent numbers against FaZe themselves. It's a good pickup if it does go ahead. Obviously, Carrigan was the IGL that brought Frozen through when Frozen did join Mouse and Carrigan was there. They have a rapport, they have an understanding. Carrigan's really helped develop him down the years. And so I think, it's probably a no-brainer. I think Twists is one of those players who you can't really replace in a conventional sense. There is no other player like Twists you can go and get who, does that job. But I think Frozen, in terms of, his production, his ceiling, his ability to work with Carrigan, these are all, really good positive options. So if that move does happen, then that will be, fantastic, I think, for FaZe. And it also tells us that FaZe is going to continue limping on whatever's going on with Complexity and them sharing that joint ownership. There was one that wasn't on HLTV, so again, not confirmed, but just in the interest of thoroughness, and we sort of did already talk about it a little bit on the previous Rostermania. It is on dust2.us, and it is written by Ryan Friend. I don't think he'd fuck up a roster move, so he's clearly got sources within Liquid. Here it is. His report is, on the 27th, Liquid have finally reached agreements with all their roster targets, which are Cadian, Skulls, Twists, and of course Zeus coming in as coach. Now, the more and more I've thought about this lineup, I said, this is a very good lineup and definitely a step in the right direction for Team Liquid, no doubt about it. The more and more I thought about it in the time that I've been gone and watching all the other teams make the moves, I actually think that this Team Liquid, low-key, might be the real team to watch in terms of between now and March. I don't want to say they can win the major. I think that's crazy. I think looking at the other teams out there and how well they've been performing since we moved to CS2, what I will say is, though, I think the ceiling of this team is as high as any other roster that's actually assembled. And the only question mark on that roster for me is Skulls. I don't actually question him as much as some other people are. I think what's really interesting is, and I'm good friends with Zeus. We go back. One of the things Zeus likes about this player is he's been away from the Brazilian bullshit. we're going to end Rostermania on a funny, because I always like to end on a bit of comedy for you. But the problem in the Brazilian scene is all of those players, the Fallens, the Tacos, the Furs, the FNXs, they were elevated to absolute godhood. Coldzera, obviously. They were elevated to absolute godhood. Nobody could replace them. Nobody could come close. And all that ended up happening was the top Brazilian team were those guys usually, and everyone in the secondary teams were the stand-ins, the understudies, who was going to get a chance to fill their boots. And then eventually, when those chances came, people complained they weren't the same type of player, they weren't good enough. And so you ended up with this weird fractured landscape of egos and ill feeling, and it was all downhill for the great Brazilian rosters and the great Brazilian players. And they've somehow been able to keep synthesizing a career out of this over and over and over. And, they just keep getting these opportunities. So it's important when you're dealing with a Brazilian player, honestly. If you want a level-headed player that's going to come in, play nice with an IGL, play nice with a coach like Zeus, who is very authoritative in his approach to the game, you need somebody whose head is completely unfucked by the fact that they're already a multi-millionaire because they played in the fucking great lineup that caught Neymar's attention and, they're huge public personalities. And Skulls is that guy. And so I think, fair play, I have to say I do think that Skulls is going to work in this team. And so for me, I think you are looking at a future number one roster there. I think the IGLing of Cadian, I think the entry fragging of Yakindar, if he goes back to that role, I think how solid Twists is on both sides. I think about Naf and how he's going to relish playing in sort of a functional team. For me, I honestly think this could be a future number one roster. What they do when they are in that ascendancy, I don't know. But the more I've thought about this team, the more I really like it. I think looking at it, they've got all the roles in all the right places, solid coach behind them, solid IGL, and they're supported by a really solid organisation. So ball is in their court. That's the most exciting team coming out of Rostermania for me. Now, with that said, let's end on a funny. On that note from Brazil, you couldn't make it up. This isn't a last dance as so much a last breath. They've brought FNX back, Fur and Taco, all coming back to play in the major qualifiers. But so between now and March, this is a team. And I can't understand, because it was like fucking, was it last year or the year before? FNX came back and couldn't play. Fur doesn't play. Like, Taco's an IGL now. And the other teams are the other two players on the team are bolts and probably the single biggest waste of talent ever. Now 31 years old, all of his career behind him. KNG, like, this is a sick joke. This is how enabled these players have been in the scene, that they are being funded again to sort of come back. And look, and look how it's described. A high-profile project could be brewing in Brazil as 5 veterans get together with the Copenhagen major in their sights. They will be playing under the name O Plano. Like, dude, I can't remember when O Plano was founded, right? But I want to say, was it like 2017? Right, I'm just going to look it up. No, it was 2021, right? It was 2021. So O Plano, it was later than I thought, right? I thought they founded it after the fucking Immortal shit show went down. So, anyway, they were founded in 2021 with O Plano meaning the plan. They claimed to have a plan in 2021. And it's 2023. There's no money. There's no plan. There's no nothing, right? And so this was hilarious because on the same day this got posted, this is how ridiculous these Brazilian guys are. There is an unrelated video of like a sneakerhead. I hate that culture. They're just shoes to me. I don't get it. But people collect them. They treat them like NFTs and blah, blah, blah. Right? So this video opens up with a guy selling sneakers to be told they're counterfeit. And he went, no, but I got them off this soccer player called Fur. and he hands over like a Luminosity jersey or an LG or whatever it was. And so, what does this mean? This means Fur out there pretending to be a footballer selling fake sneakers. Like, I couldn't believe it. All right, hang on.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, quick question.
Yeah, what's up? Talking.
I got some shoes I want to check out, see if they're good or not.
Yeah. Oh, you got another bag. Ooh. You got the duffel. I was like, hold on. I thought he was going to get it from the car. Oh, and it's wrapped up. Oh.
I got them from this guy.
All right, bet. We'll see what happens. I like the wrapping.
I mean, I got him from this guy. Did you see immediately it was Fur? Fur. F-E-R. There it was on the back of the jersey. Fur. Right? Got him from this guy. But anyway.
Damn. Off white ones. Yeah, so I can let you know right away that they're not going to be good.
Oh, really?
No, I'll show you a pair. Oh, we have one. Yeah, so it's going to be maybe hard to tell to the untrained eye, but the first thing was the size tag. That's kind of too far in, and the way it's printed on, it's kind of like a sticker. Yeah, it's more so like a sticker as opposed to like the real ones. It's kind of like printed on, yeah. Usually they come laced up, so just when it was unlaced, it kind of threw me off. I don't know if you can see like the Nike ears a little smaller on your pair. Your pair, the font's gonna be like slightly less bold. The real ones are gonna be more bold. I know yours is brand new, but the color's kind of a little too bright. They usually come like a little duller of a red, and just, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but like the smell, like when you, the fake ones kind of smell different than the real ones. So, yeah. So our opinion, I say they're no good.
I got them from a soccer player, so I figured they were.
Oh, he's a real
A soccer player, right?
soccer player?
Yeah.
Oh, for real?
For Brazil.
Oh, for real? Damn.
So I guess he's cheap.
Oh, I mean, shit. Maybe he might not know. You know, maybe he might have not known. But yeah, it's a very hard shoe to get. Brand new, these go for like 5,000. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
But
It's not the worst fake, so nobody's gonna tell him.
yeah, it's not on feet. You probably won't be able to tell, but just in hand, just because.
Yeah.
Of course. Appreciate you, man. Have a good one, yes, sir.
So there you go, right? So I don't even know how to break down this, right? I couldn't picture the jersey as well. Is that the SK era or the MIBR era? Or was it Luminosity era? I thought Luminosity had the dark blue. I don't know. But anyway, does this mean, okay, because did the dude just get it wrong? And like, or did Fur like be like, I don't want to tell him I'm an esports player because that sounds whack or whatever. So I'll tell him I'm a soccer player. Or is Fur out there selling fake sneakers under the guise he's a soccer player with his like Neymar credentials, you know, like fucking... What has happened there? Like, guys, the full fucking story is going to be so good. And I want to know. And Fur hates me. He's got me blocked on Twitter. He fucking despises me. So I can't ask him. I would ask him. I would 100% ask him if I could. But I don't know. But I want to just put this in a video. So listen, that's how little of an O plano they have. They're selling counterfeit sneakers, guys. Things have got fucking bad. And yeah, they're just that guy. They're soccer players. But maybe he's cheap. Unbelievable. What a find that was. That made my day. So anyway, that is the end of the Rostermania. Hopefully, everyone's got their teams now. We can all settle down. We can get the level of Counter-Strike good again. And make Counter-Strike great again. And we can all head to the major in Denmark. Which I might go and visit. I might go there for fun.